Awesome. Well, thanks so much for jumping on the call, Chris. I'm really excited to chat. You know, you and I have been talking now for, geez, over a
Like a
year.
year.
It's been way too long about building stuff. And I've been feeling really just bummed out that I'm not shipping very much. And so, you know, I'm hoping that this project that we've been chatting about will be a way for me to get out of that funk.
hmm
But yeah, man, let's talk a little bit about what we're doing here. You want to share a little bit about what we're working on?
Yeah. Well, so in Go Rails, my like big community and screencasts and stuff, you know, that is a community for Ruby on Rails developers, and one of the things that I wanted to build for as long as I can remember is a job board. And we got talking, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and we're like, we should just go build a job board because it's not very much work, and we can put it together quickly. Um, and like I fiddled with that one day to get like, here's what database models and stuff are needed, but there's always that like you I don't know if you feel this, but like you start a project and then you hit this point where your momentum like completely stalls, and for me that's like the design part. Um, and
Yep.
and this is a way we can kind of work together on it. Like I think you're better at design than I am, so we can use Tailwind UI or whatever and just try and build a little project like in a week or two and throw it out there, and then we can come back and like add more features and stuff to it. But a job board is something that is a pretty good example of a simple project we can build and ship in a short amount of time, and it'd be really fun to document this. So that's the goal.
Yeah, and it kind of fits with this other thing that we were talking about, which is like this 12 and 12 concept. So, you know, while we were kind of looking for ideas to build, Chris and I talked about doing a 12 and 12. A 12 and 12 was made popular by Peter Levels back in, and this was years ago now, where he did 12 startups
Yeah,
in 12 months. And that
long
was
time ago.
super inspiring to me. His story is awesome. And then that's been done by other founders along the way. You know, John from Banner Bears has done one recently and has done it really well. But it's always been inspirational, not the idea of like actually building 12 startups. That's not the inspirational part. It's finding something that actually feels good, that you're excited about working on for a longer term. And so we actually, you know, Chris, you had just launched this one, the 12 and 12.io, and we didn't jump into this right away in January. We don't actually
No.
have our projects fully started here. So we're kind of looking at just getting into this. It's the concept behind it. It isn't that you actually have to finish 12 and 12, right? Like this is just the idea behind it.
Yeah, like the goal here is to find something that sticks. It's not to actually build 12 things in 12 months or whatever, but like, you know, try 12 different projects. Maybe you burn out before you even get halfway through the month or whatever. And then the 1 month long um, period, I guess you could call it, is really about like, can you build something small to test your idea quickly and see if it'll work? In our case, we're doing a job board and we're not going to charge money for it. And we can go build that really quickly because we don't need payments or any of the other complicated stuff. And we just see if people will post jobs on there. And I know that that should be the case for Go Rails, but like, I don't really know until we try it.
Yep.
So, we can do that in a week. We can then have several weeks or months, honestly. You don't have to give up on it after a month. So, build it quickly is really just the emphasis here. I feel like
Yeah,
throwing
totally.
it's a little like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, but like when you're starting something new, you don't know until you try. So that's, I
Dude,
think,
that's so true. I feel like for me, man, like I always get in my head, I always overthink things. And so for us just to build something, not for the sake of building it, like this is solving a problem that we have. It's a little bit of scratching our own itch. But then it's also just to say, we don't know. We don't know what the market thinks. Like nobody
mhm.
knows what the market is actually going to do. Like people talk a lot about validating ideas and this and that, but nobody really knows until you put something out into the world. And so to your point, man, like for us, like to see people actually utilizing it and posting jobs, like that is that is some form of validation, but we can't get there unless we put something out there. Um,
Yep, exactly.
so, and I know there's simpler ways to test this out. There are some other tools that would allow you just to use like Excel or Airtable or this or that. But since we have Jumpstart, we're able to kind of, build this up pretty quickly. And
Yeah,
Jumpstart. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
and for anybody that's not familiar, like I'm a Rails developer, you're a Rails developer, and I built Jumpstart just to give us a bunch of functionality out of the box, like teams and payments and whatever. So we can kind of build something from scratch that we could definitely buy something off the shelf and try and use a job board someone else has built. But we can also I'd like to kind of rethink it from scratch. Like we can copy a few things from other job boards, but I want to think about it from first principles. And that's like the thing that I learn every time I listen to Jason Fried and DHH talk about, building Basecamp and Hay, and they like challenge the fundamentals. And I think it's nice for us to be able to think about like what for our job board, what do we want to emphasize? It's not necessarily going to be the same as these other ones. Like for the Rails community, I would love to have a section for apprenticeships, which you never see on job boards. So we can think about it and build it a bit more how we want. And I think it will take about the same amount of time if we grab something off the shelf. We're already like competent developers, so we can skip a little bit of that. But like you could totally go and build something and do no code and connect up Airtable and Zapier and other tools and build your own without writing any code. So like you don't have to do this the way we're doing it, but that's kind of our expertise, I think.
Yeah, and it's a place that we're going to be more proficient than if we were going to, use a no code tool. So I think it's knowing the tools, for that you're going to be most productive and happiest in, and then using those. And if you don't know what those are, then I think, starting with Jumpstart and Rails and the Go Rails community is a great place to go if you guys are interested. But yeah, so let's take a look at, a couple of job boards. So we're looking at We Work Remotely right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, that's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, and it started actually with this was started by Basecamp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then Andrew Wilkinson bought this one. Like he's bought many other job boards. He's very bullish on job boards. But yeah, so let's take a look at this a little bit. How you think about modeling this out when you look at a problem like job boards? You're trying to get people's jobs listings and all those kinds of things front and center. But how do you think about this from a programming standpoint?
Yeah. I mean, really, I start thinking about like who's coming in, and you have two groups of people. Those are people looking for work, and then there are people looking to post a job. And we kind of have like a lot of emphasis on posting a job at the top, but then you can still see half the page is here's new jobs that are available. So I think we'll need to split that in a similar way when we go do this. And then to actually dig into like, what the code will or the database tables and stuff will actually look like, we can either jump into like the post a job section and look at all the data that they collect for a job, or we can like go into a job itself and look at that. Because it's kind of the two sides of that. One, this is for collecting all the information. And, we may or may not want some of these things. But for the most part, like, I think this is going to be pretty good or pretty similar to what we'll end up doing. We may end up doing something because like one of the things that I would love to have is it's a job board, but also like a available freelancers page too. So not necessarily would you just be posting jobs, you would be like posting your profile, like saying, hey, I'm a Rails developer. I know these things and I'm looking for these types of projects. And yeah, this Dribble one that you pointed out with their freelance section is really interesting. And this is like, they have freelance jobs that you can post too, not just full-time jobs or part-time jobs, But then we could probably even do a freelancers for hire, which I know Dribble collects kind of more on the regular Dribble side of things, I think.
Yeah, you can look for designers and stuff like that that are available for part-time, full-time, all that kind of work. It becomes a little bit more like a LinkedIn search specifically for designers.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's interesting thinking about first principles for a second and getting to the jobs to be done. I love that you're talking a little bit about the two different people that we have to serve. What's the progress they're trying to make? So the progress is really not that like they want a job board, right? Like that's not the goal. The goal is
Right.
to, for somebody who is running a job board, it's going to be that they want to make income from this thing. They want to, help facilitate those jobs and build a better community. Like those are some of the things that they're trying to get out of it. And it's leveraging their audience to be able to do some of those things. And then for somebody who's going to be an active reviewer or searching for these jobs, it's going to be they're looking for good gigs that are in alignment with their values, with their time, their expertise, and all that stuff. So it's just interesting things to think about as we approach this project. It's not just like how do we replicate what Dribble did or what we work remotely did, but how do we help people who are already running communities create profitable job boards? That's
Mm-hmm.
one side of it. And
Mm-hmm.
then how do we connect people who are looking for jobs with great jobs? And then that's success to us. That's not, those are the pieces that are really important as we come up with like the frame for what we're building. So I love the jobs to be done framework, which is just about the progress that people are trying to make, not just like the product itself. So
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Maybe you should open up the create a job post on Dribble, and we can look at that and see how it compares to like we work remotely.
yeah, in terms of like the collection here, right? So you have your listings, and it's interesting because these are fairly straightforward. Um, mapping
Yeah, and
to
these are
yeah.
it's pretty simple. Um, it's quite a bit less, I think, collected than we work remotely, or maybe it's less structure or something.
Hmm.
It seems similar, but I feel like this had quite a bit more they collected.
Yeah, so we'll have to be conscious about the information that we need to collect. I mean, for us, it's going to be positioning this for specifically around the Rails community, but in flexible being built flexible enough that it can be applied to other industries.
Right. Yeah, because
Um,
like this, because you can almost imagine job postings and freelancer profiles are almost the same, except for like this section here where they're collecting a bunch of company information.
mm,
Like you could have it just we could probably get rid of that for version 1, or like only
yep.
show those fields for creating a job post or something, you know.
Yeah.
Um it would be ideal if we could make a single type of post that just was assigned a category of like this is a full-time job, it's a part-time job, it's a freelance gig, it's a freelancer's profile, could even be the same ideally. And eventually we'll probably get unique fields for each of those. But version 1, do you think we could just do a single type of profile almost, or do you think we would maybe need something separated?
I like the idea of keeping them separated just because, okay, so thinking about this as a programmer for a second, you and I have been talking a little bit about the concept of like delegated typing and like this polymorphic stuff. So I'm going to get a little nerdy here. I do think that using some model like that, like you're saying, where you can you have specific structures that you attach on specific models, but then they're not all associated in one table. I think that could be really interesting because it gives us flexibility. So
Mm-hmm.
it might be a little over engineered. And this is what I want to avoid is like getting to a rabbit hole where it's like, oh my gosh, we have all these relationships. We don't even need these. But I do think that we know we're going to have to maintain this thing and we know we're going to have to build on top of it. And to me, this is like a good trade-off to say, all right, let's start with a polymorphic relationship, which means it can be used in many different ways. And then just build really tiny tables off of that that keep the metadata, like synced up. So I think it'll be a good chance to actually walk in and show what that looks like from a model perspective and like how you can do that in Rails. I'm sure you can do it in other languages as well, but I think it'll be a good exercise for us to do that.
Yeah, because what you're talking about is like, each type of posting here might be very similar, except for a few little things. And rather than creating duplicate database tables where we have all the same stuff repeated a bunch of times, you just pull out, this, company logo doesn't apply to a freelancer on their
Yep.
profile. So like we'll just move that. So it's only included if you're creating a post for a job, a full-time job or whatever. And, maybe that gets applied to full-time and part-time and freelance gigs, but just skipped on the freelancer profiles or apprentices or whatever. So yeah, I think that would be a really good way to do it. And this is one of those fun things. I haven't used that yet in Rails. That's a newish feature, and I'd like to play with it. So this is one of those times where like you're building a new project, and if you're using something you haven't used before, it may slow you down. It might work you right into a corner later and then be a pain in the butt. But it's also a great opportunity to try something new if you want to. So I think this is a good use case for it. It's not high stakes or anything. We can try it. And if it doesn't work, we can redo it. But we're not going to lose much time on it, I think. So it'll be really good time to try it out.
Yeah, man. I think that's a good place to wrap it too. I think this gives us a good direction for where it's headed, kind of the backstory, so we can kind of document our process here. But I think this gives us a good direction and a chance just to reflect on what are we working on and why are we doing it, and then hopefully being able to build on this. So sharing our progress on 12 and 12, and then yeah, just trying to help people along the way, trying to share the process so people can actually see the behind the scenes, not just like revenue, but like how we're
Mm-hmm.
actually building this thing,
Yeah.
So that's what I'm excited about, is hopefully, getting other people along for the journey that can learn, and, hopefully it's helpful.
Yeah. Because I think we'll finish this video here, but we'll pick up probably next, like sketching out a rough design of like, what does posting a job look like? What is creating your profile as a freelancer and those little things. And then we'll dig into building it and just walk through that whole process and just document it from here on probably on YouTube and on 12and12.io for sure. We'll have
Yeah.
a project up there so you can see all these videos as we go, and we'll try and cover as much as we can. We'll probably skip a few things that are boring here and there, but it'll be interesting to walk through the entire thought process for building something, because like there's a lot of tutorials in the coding of it, but they assume that you have a design and you know what you're building yet and all these things, but we're figuring that out as we go, and that's the fun part about this. We can try and document all that. So I'm super excited about this.
Yeah, I love that we're learning as we're going. Like, even as we're just talking about this, since this is so off the cuff and not super planned, that we're just going to be figuring it out kind of in front of people, which is great. Like, we don't have it all figured out. Like, I definitely don't. So I think it's kind of a fun experiment, and I'm just excited to build and do something. So thanks so much for tuning in. If you guys are watching or listening, yeah, hopefully you get something out of it, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, sounds good. Talk soon.